I grew up 6,000 miles away from the United States, in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. The landscape is dotted with luxury malls, hotels, large houses, and man-made beaches. Infinite growth does seem possible here. It's the land of oil and wealth. The standard lifestyle is lavish compared to the rest of the world, and I would say the national pastime is shopping. Most people from over 200 countries work here in oil and gas, banking, or international trade. There are two things that characterize my childhood here: luxury and multiculturalism. And in different ways, both aspects made me want to join the movements for climate justice. I thought I lived a normal life here. I would go to school, hang out with friends, play sports, and do homework. But somehow, in the way I lived, my carbon footprint was 4 times the global average. If I add a few more details, it makes sense. I was driven in gas-guzzling cars, ate only imported food, and for leisure, my friends and I would shop and eat excessively. My friends, my classmates, my teachers came from 50 different nations. They were Muslim, Hindu, Christian. They were Korean, European, Arab, American, North African, Indian. Their exciting traditions made me feel my own background was so bland. For a while, I didn't believe I had a culture. But I was continuously exposed to vibrant traditions and learned that culture touches the world in powerful ways. Some define culture as the sum of total of the learned behavior of a group of people that are generally considered to be the tradition of that people and are transmitted from generation to generation. But I couldn't pinpoint significant traditions that my parents or grandparents had passed down to me. Soon, I would find out that I had a culture that had a great impact on the world, but not in the positive sense. My parents did try to pass on to me a religion. They sent me to Sunday school between the ages of 7 and 13. What I got out of it was a more informed spiritual identity that's not necessarily any one religion. I learned that the most important thing in life is to live ethically, and I internalized this message. I was taught to be humble, honest, care for marginalized communities, and to overall serve others. And though I realized that I may never fully feel I belong to one religion or one nation, I decided I would inform my decisions based on ethics and feel proud in that. Yet I was so unaware at how unethical and unsustainable my lifestyle was. I had unconsciously internalized that wealth entitled me to any amount of resources that I wanted. I thought living in excess was normal until one teacher opened my eyes. My science teacher was going over our unit on energy. In one moment, she drops a major truth bomb. She says, "The world depends on fossil fuels, but we are running out." She then looks around the room of naive 11-year-olds and confidently says, "My generation screwed this up. It's up to yours to fix it." All of a sudden, I feel a grand responsibility fall on my shoulders. For the first time, I realized that actions have environmental consequences. It was after that class that I joined the environmental club at my school. From the first days, I learned about our environmental reality. Nature lives in fragile harmony with humans. Humans are disrupting the system by exploiting nature. We burn fossil fuels and release CO2. That contributes to global warming. As a result, the Arctic is melting, sea levels are rising, weather is becoming more extreme. How did we get here? Who was to blame? Well, it was the past generation. I was enraged. How could people consciously be sending our world into a climate crisis? They have to be held accountable. They are responsible. Blame was always put on they, these powerful institutions and corporations that perpetuate our dependence on oil. But never did I ask, what is my role in the system? So after each club meeting, I returned to my everyday life, marked by excess and disregard for the environment. After one environmental club meeting, I'm given a rude awakening. We watched the short video, The Story of Stuff by Annie Leonard.
Is that stuff moves through a system from extraction to production to distribution to consumption to disposal.
She explains who pays the full price of an item, like a radio.
So who did pay? Well, these people paid with the loss of their natural resource space. These people paid with the loss of their clean air, with increasing asthma and cancer rates. Kids in the Congo paid with their future. 30% of the kids in the Congo now have dropped out of school to mine coltan, a metal we need for our cheap and disposable electronics. These people even paid by having to cover their own health insurance. All along this system, people pitched in so I could get this radio for $4.99.
They're not just screwing over my generation, but they're screwing over the current generation all over the world, but in poorer countries with less power. What fuels this cycle of suffering? The golden arrow of consumption.
This is the heart of the system, the engine that drives it. It is so important that protecting this arrow has become the top priority for both of these guys. Our enormously productive economy demands that we make consumption our way of life, that we convert the buying and use of goods into rituals, that we seek our spiritual satisfaction, our ego satisfaction in consumption. We need things consumed, burned up, replaced, and discarded at an ever-accelerating rate. We have become a nation of consumers. Our primary identity has become that of being consumers.
Wait, hold up. That's me. I do all those things. Are people suffering because of me? Are people around the world living with my pollution? More of these light bulbs go off. The status quo is based on exploitation of people and the planet. My life of extreme comfort runs on oil and conspicuous consumption. That means I am to blame. I am irresponsible. I should be held accountable. I am cruel. Finally, I found my culture. It's consumerism. And this makes me feel sick to my stomach. And my sense of self that was dependent on living ethically shatters. I still want to be ethical, so I had no choice but to change and look for solutions to these big problems that I'm a part of. So that year, I joined the Global Issues Conference, and I was among other students who recognized the world as interdependent and the status quo is unacceptable. We value everyone's well-being. We believe everyone has a right to live in a sustainable and just world. And people with power must use it responsibly. This moral and ethical disposition makes us global citizens. Finally, I discovered my identity and responsibilities. As a person with power in the status quo and as a global citizen, it is my responsibility to engage in the movements for climate justice. So I started a campaign called Boot the Bottle to help my community reduce plastic consumption and reduce our carbon footprint and increase eco-citizenship among all economic levels, at schools, construction projects, and labor accommodations. We specifically had the Eco-Citizen Labor Worker Project. We installed water dispensers and provided reusable bottles to reduce the labor force's dependence on bottled water. There, we delivered eco-citizen workshops.
No more plastic!
Now I live in Washington, D.C. Over the summer, I trained as a climate reality leader. At university, I joined the Fossil Free campaign. We organized protests and held rallies. I also lobbied for climate action on Capitol Hill. Then I attended the Planet Forward Summit, and I committed myself to be an environmental journalist. I covered the March for Science in D.C. and the People's Climate March.
Climate change is real. This is how it feels. Climate change is real. We will not go away. Welcome to your 100th day. We will not go away.
I spoke with this amazing group of people who are fighting for climate justice. Climate justice is no longer on the president's to-do list, but it is still on the people's to-do list. We are not backing down.